take a look at geometrics. Practice test 2, questions 1 through 8 for Adobe Photoshop. We're going to get started on task number 1 here, where it's asking us to answer a few yes or no questions about the lasso tool. So the question reads, select yes if the statement is a valid use of the lasso tool, otherwise select no. So first it asks, is the lasso tool used to make a non-geometric selection? The lasso tool is a tool that is used for making selections, and the freeform lasso tool is used to make non-geometric selections as opposed to the polygonal lasso tool. So we'll go ahead and select yes, that is correct. Next, to make a selection and use content aware fill. You might remember this from Geometrics Practice Test 1, where we did use the lasso tool in order to make a selection and use content aware fill. This is yes. Next, to group objects from separate layers together. And no, this is one of the features that is not part of the lasso tool, so that is a no. It's great for selecting things on a single layer, not so great at selecting multiple layers here. Next, to remove a selected area from an image, and we'll go ahead and select yes. You can make a selection with the lasso tool and delete it from your image. We'll go ahead and hit next. And we are correct. Question 2. It is important to consider copyright anytime you work on a project. Which statement correctly describes a copyright? Option 1, the amount of copies you can legally make of another person's work. Option 2, the exclusive right to copy, distribute, and profit from a work. Option 3, the temporary right to copy someone else's work. Or option 4, the ownership of a digital key that allows the duplication of a piece. So I'm thinking that the option is going to be number 2, the exclusive right to copy, distribute, and profit from a work. Copyright is a tool to protect your own creative works. So this is the definition that is the best fit. This is all about protecting your own creative work rather than using somebody else's. Let's go ahead and hit next. And we are correct. Task number 3, when applying a filter to a text layer, how can you ensure that the type's editability is not lost? Option 1, enable the type's editable permanence option. Option 2, ensure that the document is saved as a PSD. Option 3, convert the type layer into a smart object. And option 4, rasterize the type layer after applying the filter. So just like in our first practice test, this is actually, I believe, the same question that we had in the first practice test. So there's a couple different options that make sense here. Either converting the type layer into a smart object or ensuring that the document is saved as a PSD. And there actually are a couple different editable forms of document. I believe that PDFs do retain some editing capabilities inside of Photoshop. So the most correct option here is convert the type layer into a smart object. So this will basically take a picture of what you've already done and allow you to open up that picture later to change any options you need to within Photoshop. We'll go ahead and see if that is the correct answer by hitting next. And we are correct. Task number 4, true or false? By default, Quick Export generates assets as PSD files and prompts you to select an export location. Now this is an interesting one. I actually have not seen this before, this Quick Export function. I'm an old fogey and I've been using Photoshop for a while, but there's still a lot to learn about Adobe Photoshop. So let's go to the help panel and see if it has anything helpful for us to see here. So it says it is false. By default, Quick Export generates assets as PNG, not PSD, with transparency and prompts you every time to select an export location. There's a lot of extra information there, but the important part is that by default, it sounds like it's going to give you a PNG file, which is just like a normal picture file instead of a PSD. And those PSD files are, of course, Photoshop documents that can be edited at a later date. PNG is a little bit harder to edit and doesn't give you nearly as many options as PSDs. We'll go ahead and select false and hit next. And again, we are correct. Task number 5, select 2 methods to ensure the brushes panel is visible. 1, select the brush tool. 2, window brushes. 3, select the history brush tool. 4, window workspace painting. 5, select the brush icon in the layers panel. Or 6, select brush preset in the properties panel. So there's a couple different options that stand out to me here. The first one is this window brushes. This is one of the easiest ways to find panels inside of Adobe Photoshop or even Adobe Premiere Pro is using that window function. So always a good place to look is that window dropdown. And we can also even check that ourselves by clicking on window. You'll see that brushes does appear inside of here, so that is one of our valid options. Next, this window workspace painting is the next one that stands out to me. I do like to lean on that window area a little bit, so let's go ahead and try that. See if that'll open the brushes panel for us. We'll go up to Window, we'll go to Workspace, and we will select Painting. And we'll see if that gives us the brushes panel, which it does in fact give us the brushes panel right here. To get our geometrics panel back and answer that question, we'll go to Window at the top, go to Extensions, Legacy, and then click on Geometrics. And that will give us our panel back. If we want to move it into position, we can just drag it back to where it was before, and we can resize it by putting our mouse over on the side and just sliding it over to the right. And that's going to give us our workspace more or less back to how we had it. So Window Brushes and also Window Workspace Painting are going to be my best bet for if this is going to be correct. Now I do want to verify this is what they're looking for, so we'll go ahead and jump into the Help panel again. So the brush panel can be opened by clicking the Window/Menu Brushes, and we already know that. The brush panel will automatically open when the painting workspace is selected and refreshed. So yes, we have nailed it. That window panel, that window tab is going to be a really great place to look for any panels you might be missing. We'll go ahead and select Next. And again, we are correct. Task number 6, change Photoshop to automatically save recovery information every 15 minutes. So this is like autosave. In class, you'll often hear me say that Photoshop does not save your work automatically, and this is sort of true. Photoshop does usually save backup copies every now and then. However, it's not a feature you can or should rely on. It's definitely always worth it to take your time to manually save. But while we're taking a look at this, let's figure out how to automatically save or recovery information every 15 minutes. This is going to be inside of the Preferences, so we'll go up to Edit at the top, and we'll go down to Preferences. From here, we are going to select, let's start with General. General is always a good place to start if you're not quite sure where the option is that you're looking for. I'm going to see if, there it is. So it looks like it was turned off by default, and this is exactly why I warn you that it's never safe to assume that Adobe is going to save your work automatically. So our checkbox is right here, automatically save recovery information every, and we'll hit this drop down box to say 15 minutes. We'll go ahead and select OK, and then we'll hit Next to check our answer. And again, we are correct. Task number 7, without changing the ruler settings, create a vertical guide at 550 pixels and a horizontal guide at 450 pixels. Now, I do believe we can do, I believe we might be able to use guide layers here, unless I'm remembering from Adobe After Effects instead. We'll jump back down to Help and just see View menu and select Guides, New Guide. All right, so we'll go to View up here at the top. We'll go to Guides and select New Guide. There it is. Wonderful. So you'll see we have an option for horizontal and an option for vertical. So for our vertical guide, it says 550 pixels. So we'll go ahead and type in 550 right here and click on OK. That's going to create a new guideline for us right here. Next, we're going to go to View and then Guides. We'll create another new guide. And this time we'll go horizontal and type in 450 pixels and then select OK. You'll see that this has added our 2 guides for us that can be helpful for placing elements or lining things up in our document. We'll go ahead and select Next. Now, a quick note as we're going through this, I am seeing these questions for the first time, and even though I've been using Photoshop for a long time, there's often ways that I can improve my own workflow that I learn just from using geometrics here. So the way I would normally do this on my own is just by clicking and dragging on my rulers to manually create guides, but this way is faster and more accurate compared to the way that I would traditionally do this. So even for an experienced Photoshop user such as myself, there is still plenty to be gained here. We're going to go ahead and select Next. Task number 8, add a drop shadow effect to the text Natural Beauty. Set the angle to 45 degrees and the distance to 6 pixels, accept all other defaults. We're going to jump into our layer panel here, and we're going to look for the layer that says Natural Beauty. And that's going to be this one right here. So we'll click on the Natural Beauty layer, and then we're going to go to FX at the bottom, and we're going to go to Drop Shadow right here. It tells us to make sure that this is set to 45 degrees for the angle, and we can change that right here. So 45, and then it says to set a distance of 6 pixels, and then we'll go ahead and move this window out of the way so we can actually see what that has done. If you look at the natural beauty text here, I'll turn this on and off. You'll see that this has added a nice shadow behind our text, which helps to improve readability. So just make sure this check mark is turned on after changing your settings, and we're going to go ahead and select OK, and then we'll hit Next. And of course, we are correct here. All right, that's going to wrap up this video. Again, make sure you screenshot your summary page. So click on Summary, and you can take your screenshot by holding down the Windows key with your left finger and holding or pressing F10 using your right finger. So make sure you take your screenshots. Make sure I can see questions 1 through 8. You'll probably need 2 different screenshots in order to do that. Get those attached on Google Classroom and hit Submit, and you are all set. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all back in class. Bye now.